All right, and we are now joined with Naomi Nicholson from Secluded Wellness. Thank you so much for joining me today,
Thank you
Naomi.
so much, Dana.
All right, so we're getting into the topic of cannabis. Now, you do some education around cannabis. Where do you start? I don't even know what my first questions should be, but I'll let you take the lead in this conversation.
You bet. Thank you so much for allowing me the space to be able to communicate to people about cannabis because we've been conditioned that it's, the devil's lettuce and it's bad and don't be a stoner. You're not going to get anywhere. So we have all this really deep messaging. And now that it's legal, we have to change the views we have and all the information that's been stored in our brain about cannabis. And I'm really excited to share with you how medicinal cannabis can help you in your life in many different ways.
Yeah. So
So,
how does it help and who can use it?
oh, well, everybody can use it. And I'm going to speak in analogies because one thing that we're trained is that we understand that a small bottle of aspirin is like a small amount of aspirin, and a big bottle of aspirin or T3s is a little bit stronger. So, we understand the severity of medications going from simple to, more heavy duty. So, the way I like to explain cannabis is that it's kind of like spaghetti. So, we can make spaghetti noodles and put some tomato sauce in there, and that's spaghetti. I mean, it's food. However, if we do spaghetti with tomatoes and garlic and bay leaves and extra meat, that is a really good spaghetti. And so cannabis is the same way. So cannabis has what they call cannabinoids, and these cannabinoids are named in 3 or 4 letter acronyms. THC, CBD, and those are the ones we're most familiar with. So each cannabinoid will do something different in the body. So that's where we get the revved up or the, relaxed in the couch. So that's what we kind of know about cannabis is that we know we are interested in it, but how does it actually work?
Hmm.
So with the spaghetti sauce analogy, um, now that there's legalization, people will take what they call isolates, so
Hmm.
meaning just one part of the plant. And that's kind of like the spaghetti with just tomato sauce. I mean, it works and people like it. They use CBD oil, which really is a tincture, and they put it under their tongue. And if you take too much CBD, you're going to get a little sleepy. And if you take just a little bit, you might get revved up, but you're not
Oh,
excited, your body is relaxed. And there's a
okay.
reason why cannabis can relax you.
All right. So with many indigenous communities, there is the discussion about addiction. Is cannabis addictive? And if somebody is struggling with addiction to maybe some of the more chemical addictions or alcohol, is cannabis a good solution to continue to use it? Usually, people in recovery say like nothing and don't even look at that.
So, thank you for that question because I think it's a very important topic that, we have a bad narrative around. So, one thing I want to say is in my healing journey, a self-help guru told me that what, we're all addicts. So the belief system that we have that I have to have all or nothing, that is something that I personally believe is a fallacy of addiction because I'm addicted to coffee and we don't say anything about it. So I just want the mindset to change that coffee is our greatest addiction and it is so socially acceptable. Now, we have lock in keys, or I like to use the analogy of parking lots and parking spaces. So, if you think of a Walmart parking lot, we have lots of different parking spaces. However, we have parking spots, designated for handicap parking or electric vehicle parking. Now, you can go and put a big Ford F-350 in a plug-in electric parking spot. It's a vehicle that will fit in the parking spot, but it's not the right vehicle. And that is important because our brain is filled with all these chemicals. And if they don't have the right car in the parking spot or lock in the key, your brain isn't going to release the right hormones and chemicals that you need to feel well. So I want to lay that information out first, because when we think of addiction, basically our parking spot really desperately needs a certain vehicle, whether it's alcohol, gambling, cookies, caffeine, and the body will do what it needs to get it. Now, what you may not know is that we have an endocannabinoid system. And that system is what allows inflammation to be reduced, common relaxation. And that's where cannabis comes in. Because re- if we put a proper vehicle in that parking spot, then the body won't have such a need for alcohol or other um, dependents that make us feel good.
It's so fascinating. I personally have I didn't use cannabis. I was the straight up party girl. Let's go into the alcohol and party lifestyle. So cannabis was never really a thing. It's so interesting because now that I'm into my 40s and it's legal, I'm really interested in using CBD was what I started with. But one of the steps for me, so it was kind of like I my process with using cannabis was uh, sort of like an experiment, like a science experiment, because I really
Yes.
wasn't sure. And then I've had bad experiences with cannabis where it's like that anxiety and oh my gosh, the world is ending
Yep.
experience, right? With cannabis. And so I was like, I don't know if this is going to be for me, but as I've kind of learned a little bit more about cannabis, one thing I've heard is that it's called a medicine. And I'm
Yeah.
curious as to why it's called a medicine. Does it actually heal or is
Yes,
it
it
just
does.
that language?
So remember I had mentioned the endocannabinoid system
Yeah.
and parking spaces and cars. If you do not have the right car in that parking spot, you're not going to feel good. Just like if you don't eat food, food is your gasoline in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with cannabis, there's so many different options. And I like to explain it to people that it's like you can take stuff that's the equivalent of baby aspirin, topicals, or you put a
Right.
couple drops of CBD oil under your tongue. You can go from smoking flower, vaping flower, edibles. Edibles are definitely go slow. Like just because it doesn't hit you right away doesn't mean it's working. And that's one of the things I want to say about bad experiences. And I tell people it's time to get back on the train again because, how many times have we consumed alcohol, been hungover, said, I'm never going to do this again, and then we do it
Mm-hmm.
because alcohol doesn't make you hypersensitive. Alcohol is like, oh my God, I tripped and fell, ha ha ha, and we all laugh. If we've had an edible and we tripped and fell, it's like, oh my gosh, because we're hyper aware and then we don't want to do it. However, would you ever take a heavy duty prescription medication like Demerol without learning how to use the medication?
Right.
No. And that's the same thing with cannabis because I can provide suggestions from, like I said, I can smoke pot. It's technically pot, but it's very high CBD and no THC. So,
Mm.
yes, I'm technically smoking pot, but what I'm choosing is CBD. Um, so again, I know in the time we have, I don't have enough time to explain everything. However, topicals are amazing for pain. I have a grandpa who he calls it his Indian medicine, and I gift him because you're allowed to gift up to 30 grams a day, and you need to know the law. And I gift him infused massage oil, and he doesn't need to take T3s to go to bed. Now, that is a
Oh.
real testament, and I have lots of stories like that. And people can
Mm-hmm.
start with topicals and know the topicals won't make you stoned, it won't make you fail, a urine test, but there's so much to it. And you are right. Our whole life is a science experiment. maybe I like this coffee, maybe I don't. Maybe I like blackjack, or maybe I like, slot machines. Maybe I like smoking pot, maybe I like vaping. Some people like CBD oil, some people like edibles, and that's the beauty of it, is once you learn, the sky's the limit.
Okay. When it comes to the stigma of using cannabis, what would you hope to educate people on?
Well, it's remember what I was saying, our brain, we have been so conditioned not to be a stoner. And, back in the day, when I was in university, I'd smoke pot, I would read a book this thick, and then, write a, 3,000 word essay, and I'd get it done all in one night. I could focus. But, back then, you would run to the drug dealer's house and hope you didn't get, caught. Now you can go into a cannabis store and it's just like a grocery store or liquor store. There's so many options, and it really is a science game. And what might work for me might not work for you. And if you buy flower from one grower, that doesn't mean it's going to be the exact same from another grower. So that is some of the downfall with cannabis, is that just like a tomato is never the same from my garden or yours, cannabis products may not be quite the same depending on what you're consuming.
Okay. Now, just as we wrap things up, so you have offered massages, but you're
Yes.
currently not doing it. Can you talk a little bit about what your services are and how they can help an individual?
So, because I knew about the endocannabinoid system, being a shiatsu therapist, you may not know I'm also a medicine woman. My great grandmother was a medicine woman. I've been into holistic health for years. So, cannabis was a really good add on. And if you can get the endocannabinoid receptors on your skin to have CBD, then the pain reduces. So, actually put my money where my mouth is. I flew to Colorado. I spent a week there researching their stores, and I was trained by Jordan Person from Colorado, who is the guru of cannabis massage. And I've also taken training at Lasqueti Island Cannabis Corp when they did cannabis training. So I'm and my husband were very well educated on the medicinal side, as we're not interested in being recreational high, because it is a medicine. So, when you get products made by Indigenous people, that's our energy being put into the medicine that I make for somebody. And it's very different than just buying a sterile product from a government store. So, the
Yeah.
Indigenous market is changing, and in time, I may come back out of retirement for cannabis massage, and it really truly is one of the best massages you will ever have.
Just as I just said that as we wrap things up, I have one more question. But
Of course.
talking about indigenous cannabis, um, how does that whole category differ from the regular system in indigenous cannabis?
Well, in the short amount of time we have here, here's how it goes. So the federal government did not, and the provincial government did not make the rules to apply to Indigenous lands. So what chief and council's economic developments need to do is they need to get out of their own way and set up rules to let people like myself be able to produce topicals or oils or production. A U brew, you can do cannabis farm, instead of like plants, everybody gets a pod. So the government made the rules so that Indigenous governments can take advantage of it. And again, feel free to reach out, because I have so many ideas that could really help our Indigenous communities go from poverty to, just like other nations have done, where they actually have so much demand, they have to hire non Indigenous. So the cannabis industry we're just starting in the Indigenous cannabis industry. So you can get fresh product with our good energy put in it versus, a product that's fairly sterile. And, there's people want good fresh product, and that's where I see the Indigenous market is changing. And there's a lot of Indigenous stores popping up who provide, really good advice and product. So I really look forward to the changes that are coming.
All right. Naomi, if somebody wants to reach out to learn about the workshops you offer or the services, where can they go?
Well, you can go to my website, secludedwellness.com. However, with COVID, I really haven't updated anything, so you can send me a message. And I will say that our specialty in education is on a medicinal side, and we can teach you how to process your 32 grams or less because you're allowed 1 ounce. We can show you how to process it in an instant pot so it doesn't stink up your house. And you know what's in your product. So, secludedwellness.com, send me an email. And I very much look forward to coming out of COVID retirement now that Zoom workshops and in person is, starting to come back.
All right. Naomi, it's been so great chatting with you. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you so much. And I really wish everyone just to be kind of curious. Don't be kind of scared. Be kind of curious.